As the war rolled slowly on, you got the feeling that we were winning. We didn't have the full picture, of course, but we'd seen nothing of the Argentinian Navy since the start. They're extremely brave. Air Force had taken the mother of all kickings, and their largely conscript army, while doing its best, was also being stuffed on the ground. Victory wasn't a certainty, but it was in sight. There was always the feeling, though, that the scales could tip back the other way. The enemy had the power to hit us very hard, as they demonstrated a couple of days after they hit Ardent, incidentally, killing a 17-year-old sailor from my hometown. When they came back after her sister ship Hms Antelope the day she was attacked, the weather was okay. The tit-for-tat Battle of Barmally, or Death Valley if you were an Argentine pilot, continued. Those who were still able to fight were full of courage, and they were giving it their best shot. The air raid warnings went off, and there was a mad scramble for cover or weapons. Our track ahead was on the blink again, so we were limited to our SLRs, and then a couple of Skyhawks screamed overhead into a cloud of lead and other ordnance. Antelope was the pilot's target. She was stationed at the entrance to San Carlos Water in a guard position, protecting our beach. One of them was shot down immediately by a Rapier missile from another site, more in an ASM Air 2 surface missile roll than a SAM roll, because it was fired down from the hillside at the jet as it skimmed across the waves. The second missed on his first run and dropped his bombs in the sea before getting back on his bike to the mainland. His decision was probably not made out of choice, but from necessity. His Skyhawk would have been down to the last dregs of aviation fuel, and couldn't he make another sweep? If he was lucky and didn't bump into a sortie of Harriers on his return, he would just about have made it home. Their mates weren't far behind them. Several waves of Mirages and Skyhawks roared in over the anchorage, dodging the flak as they came. All of them seemed to set their sights on the Antelope. One Skyhawk zeroed in at mast height and was hit by 20mm cannon shells fired from the ship's decks. All credit to the brave, mad bastard. He managed to get his 500-pound bombs away before he actually collided with the mast and disintegrated in a ball of flame. Amazingly, the bombs didn't explode, and neither did any dropped by any of the other planes. Only one British sailor had been killed, and it looked like a miraculous escape. There was a fire on board, but it looked under control, and after a while we forgot about it. Night descended and we got on with our duties of 4 hours on, 4 hours off. I was with Benny, I think, and it was dark and very quiet when somebody suddenly switched on the lights. The Antelope had just exploded, an enormous blast like nothing I'd ever seen before. She was a fair way off in San Carlos Water, but I could feel the heat wave up on the hill and I nearly fell over, more with shock than anything else, though the pressure wave was noticeable. All around, lads who'd been asleep woke up, and that tells you something. A few little bangs weren't enough to rouse us now. A series of other explosions followed, turning the water and the surrounding hills red and orange, hell-like and glowing, as they reflected the flames. I thought I'd just witnessed the destruction of a ship and her entire crew, and I felt sick to my stomach with the horror of it. What we didn't know at the time was that the ship had been evacuated, and the explosion had been caused by Hms unexploded bomb, going off and setting off a chain of explosions in her magazines. A very brave team of Royal Engineer bomb disposal experts, led by Staff Sergeant James Prescott, were working to defuse it on board. Apparently SSGT Prescott had extracted the bomb's fuse twice, but each time had second thoughts and put it back. He took it out a third time, and the bomb detonated, killing him instantly and taking an arm from one of his team. The eventual blast, which came sometime later and peeled the frigate apart like a cheap sardine tin, created one of the most dramatic photographs of the war and a permanent image in my head. The hulk glowed throughout the night as we watched, numb and in shock. We tried to mask our feelings, as soldiers do. I remember someone saying, "Oh well, at least we've got the warmth of a good fire." Two general cackles of amusement. You tend to make light of things in times of great stress, but it was very forced. I felt an added sadness. The Antelope was one of the ships who had escorted us the 7,000 or 8,000 miles down it, and I remembered catching a glimpse of her one day in the rough South Atlantic seas from the deck of the Durant. At first light, we all gathered and watched the death throes of a once proud ship. She was defiant to the end, burning until there was nothing left to burn, just a mass of tangled molten metal. She finally succumbed to the inevitable, and her back broke, sending her sliding to an icy grave in the Atlantic, engulfed in a volcanic mountain of steam. I felt like saying a few words. Bob said them for me. "Quinny, you're in the seat. Benny, check the weapons. Let's get these fucking T's and A's done." He pointed to the bubbling sea. "Try and stop that happening again." We all went about our business waiting for the next air raid warning read.